Turkey too.
Probably. I mean, the farther east you go, it's definitely going to get like that, right?
I mean, presumably, tartar sauce was made by the Tartars, right?
You would assume.
I like
Except
tartar sauce.
there are some weird things like that, like Jamaica, Queens, the neighborhood in New York.
Yeah.
Not at all named after Jamaica the island.
Really?
Totally different name. Just happens to be exactly the same.
Huh. It's very weird.
I love and
no
hate
relation,
like places like that do that, where it's like you think it's like French fries not named for France, it's named for the style of cutting them, or the guy the guy who invented them was like
American troops during World War One saw Belgian troops making it, and the Belgian troops were speaking French.
Really?
Yeah.
Classic.
Maybe it's French toast that I'm thinking of, that the guy was...
French toast was German. We changed it during the First World War to be French toast because we didn't like the Germans during the First World War.
Really?
Yeah.
Before
then it was called German toast.
What?
Or Dutch toast, yeah.
Huh. That Dutch toast. I kind of fuck with Dutch toast.
Dutch toast?
Dutch toast.
Yeah.
That could be okay.
Yeah.
That could be all right.
It's not a French thing. It's eaten by Germanic peoples.
Huh.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. Well, folks.
Wait, were we recording that?
Yeah, we're recording. Called a cold intro, buddy.
That's right.
Well, I guess 2 days after we recorded the last episode of the show, a little something went down in Eastern Europe.
There was an election in Lithuania.
I heard about that.
I don't actually know that that's true.
Dude, absolutely crazy. Because I guess for like a week prior to that, we'd been hearing chatter that there might be Russian movements.
There was like buildup of troops on the border and stuff.
I think we maybe even talked about like the buildup of troops, but I don't remember what we said.
Right.
I think in retrospect, having watched them move all that equipment at a time when gas prices are as high as they are, you were gonna do something with it, right?
Yeah.
More than just the normal yearly military exercise they have. Like, there was a news article that came out recently that Russia's pulling up like 143,000 conscripts or whatever. Turns out they do that every year. That's just the normal rotation of the conscripts to get more people and get them trained.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
Okay, so did you play Civ 5?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you know when you put troops on someone's border and not declare war on them, you get that event where the world leader would come and talk to you and say, like, I see the troops, on my border, get them, are you planning to declare war on me? And you can either, like, say yes and declare war on them, or you can lie. Putin essentially just clicked the lie option.
Yeah, man. Jake, what do you think?
I remember when I was hearing about the buildup, it felt like they were going to invade to me, and I remember talking to other people. I don't remember exactly who told me that no, it's it's routine. They just build up, and as soon as they invaded, I felt vindicated, but also terrified for the Ukrainian people.
That's the perfect way to put it. Vindicated in our predictions, terrified of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's kind of weird how much the Ukrainians have been resisting them.
It's impressive.
The Russians have been trying to limit civilian casualties because they have to occupy the place afterwards. They can't slaughter.
Have they, though?
They've in some places. Like cultural centers like Kyiv, you got to capture that.
Yeah.
You got to capture that.
I mean, yeah, and they realize that they have to control the people afterwards. They can't just be going around slaughtering all of them. They're trying to be. They could be a lot more heavy-handed than they're being.
That's the main point. Russia could just go scorched earth and be done with this war in a week.
Yeah.
They decided to take whatever the Russian form of more humanitarian is. And we got the war that we got.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, though, dude. Like, I haven't been this engaged in world news in a long time. I mean,
there hasn't been a story or an event like this on the world stage in quite some time.
Not since the last Russian invasion in 2014.
Yeah, since Crimea.
Yeah.
What?
How did we not see this coming from back then?
Why was nothing done about that back then? Putin just kind of came in. It's like, yeah, these areas declare themselves.
He did the same thing in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is that those were like the war in Georgia and the wars in Chechnya, they were also called special military operations.
Yeah.
And we're not at war, folks. Don't mind the hundreds of coffins coming home. Good God, dude! You seen those videos of the hospital trucks driving into Belarus?
I've not.
Dude, it's the video I saw was like maybe a minute 40. Every 5 seconds, there's a hospital truck passing. These things carry up to 50 people, and you know the Russians will stuff more in there if there's more people to carry. It does not look good for Russia, dude.
I mean, I've been watching all the videos coming out from like Ukrainian soldiers when they've captured Russians and everything, or they're looking at dead Russians. I mean, it's not going well for them, man.
Dude, what was crazy to me about the 2014 invasion was I remember seeing live stream footage in perfect 1080p HD from the deck of a Russian cruise missile ship that was just launching, and I was like, wow, this is really well covered. It's being filmed from all angles. Nothing like this. Nothing like this, dude. This is war in 3D. I don't even know what's going on.
It's sorry, Jake.
No, go ahead.
I mean, it's just people have so much more access to communication, to visual communication now.
Oh, yeah.
That like, both sides can just like send videos that the entire world can see it in an instant. It's crazy.
It's impressive that there are so many Russian natives who are just so brainwashed by Russian media that despite all of the evidence, video and otherwise out there of the war and what they're doing in Ukraine, that so many of them believe that there is no war, that it's not as serious as it is.
Or that they continue to support the war.
Right,
the fact
exactly.
That, I mean, based off of things which are largely lies. I mean, they seem to believe that they're liberating the Ukrainian people despite the fact that obviously the Ukrainian people don't like them.
I've heard reports of people who, like Ukrainian citizens, taking shelter in bomb shelters, calling their relatives in Russia saying, I'm in a bomb shelter right now, being attacked, being bombed, and their relatives are saying, no, that's not true. That's not what's happening.
Oh my gosh,
like straight up just gaslighting someone in a bomb shelter.
Yeah, your own family. It's not like just like people calling for help. It's your own family saying, I'm in a bomb shelter right now, taking shelter from artillery. And they choose to believe Russian state media instead.
That's the craziest part of it, right? Like a third of Ukrainians speak Russian on a daily basis. The culture is pretty closely connected. How can the disconnect be so much that you could kill your neighbor and be like, oh, well, he was asking for it?
I mean,
like, what?
And that's sort of one of the things that the Russians are using as an excuse to invade is that, oh, we're liberating these Russian areas in Ukraine.
Yeah. Which, yeah, the whole media side of this from the Russians is just collapsing, man. Like in the beginning, they had these stated objectives of demilitarization and denazification. But now they're like, psych, we didn't want to capture Kyiv and Zelensky. We're just going to go for the same areas we were in 2014? That was the plan all along?
Yeah.
Then why did you lose 10,000 troops in the north? What are you talking about?
It's moving the goalpost, man. I mean, it's been a complete logistical failure. Have you seen the rows and rows of like Russian tanks and armored vehicles that are just sitting there because they can't get gas?
And what's crazy is prior to this war, when we'd see a picture of a destroyed tank, we'd be like, it's just anecdotal. There's
a picture here or there.
Yeah, a picture here or there. We got tags for each and every one of these bad boys. And just the ones that have been visually confirmed, like completely visually confirmed, is a lot of vehicles. A lot.
Both destroyed and abandoned, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Ukrainian farmers are just taking them. The Ukrainian government is saying, you can keep it.
You can have it.
Yeah.
Dude, they're
which
saying,
honestly...
kind of badass.
Free tank?
Free tank, yeah.
Possibility of death, but free tank.
They're saying it's coming out in like thirds, where a third of vehicles the Ukrainians outright destroy. A third of them they're able to repurpose, and a third just... there's so much viscera and stuff in there that it's going to take a while to get them back in place. But it's like, that is because you look at these vehicles and you're like, oh, that's just some Russian crap, some old steel, it's gone. That was millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars at least.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. The Russian war machine is going to be gassed, dude, real quick.
Have you seen the flaw with the autoloader system that Russian tanks use?
Oh my god.
Yes,
yeah.
where if it gets hit,
You hit in the right place, the
It
top
knocks,
just blows off.
blows off. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
all
seen
the
that.
ammunition
I was
goes
going to
off.
bring that up.
This
yeah.
is why NATO doesn't use autoloaders typically.
Yeah, I mean the Americans do. I mean, it makes our tanks bigger targets, but
Yeah.
also they don't just explode.
And we have a faster fire rate, more control when something does go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, we have more people in the tank though. We have to have a dedicated loader.
So when one does go down, you're risking more lives per tank,
and you have to dedicate more people to each tank.
Right.
Yeah, and they don't go down as often. I mean, the Abrams is a big tank.
It's also
The West Pikes make them big.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, great tank when operated by NATO members. When it's just some random country that happened to buy them, yeah, the effect isn't. Yeah, it's not like the American training, but it's still a good tank.
Yeah.
Whereas these Russian stuff, bro, I can't imagine Russia's future sales are going to be any good. Their equipment isn't doing much.
Yeah, I mean the Indians are still trying to buy from the Russians.
Yeah, which so much of this on the world stage is going to depend on India and the third world nations. If they're not willing to sanction or at least say maybe don't do this, we'll have to see where things go. With the massacre in Bucha right now, India has started to pull a little bit back from Russia. I think they're looking at cutting down the oil shipments they were going to receive from Russia.
I mean, their military is so reliant on Russia, though. I mean, like
for replacement parts, at least.
Replacement parts for ammunition. I mean, it's like they're the largest producer in the world of 7.62. I mean, where else are you going to get that? I mean, other places produce it, but not nearly as cheaply and not nearly as plentifully.
Oh yeah,
and they to switch over to using Western military equipment is like a decades process. It's not going to happen in a year.
And and other than just mechanical training, it's a huge change in doctrine as well. The way we fight our wars is very different than the way Russia does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of sanctions on Russia, how effective do you think they've been or will be? Do you think
how effective were the sanctions after 2014 from stopping this from happening?
True.
They didn't. It didn't.
I mean, it works on a democracy to sanction them. It doesn't work on an authoritarian.
You know what's crazy is a former German PM, or who's the leader of Germany? They're Chancellor. Yeah, former German Chancellor just said the exact same thing a couple days ago. He was like, sanctions only work on democratic nations where the people have an input. Putin's not being stopped by that.
I mean, the only people you could really go after that would have an impact are going to be the oligarchs.
Which they are trying to do.
They are attempting to do, yes.
Oh, yeah. Seems like the KGB or the FSB is going after them as much as the rest of the world is. Dude, the amount of poisonings recently is just real gross. Real gross way to deal with your enemies.
I mean, that's how Putin does it.
Double tap them. Be a man.
Be a man.
I hate to say it, but just drone strike them and get it over with. The slow poisoning and the posturing is so very Russian. It's such a Russian way
everyone
of dealing with
knows
opposition.
What's going on anyway. It's not like you're being slick about it. It's not like, oh, they died a mysterious death.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows they're being poisoned. So
do the Russian people.
Okay, that might be the biggest question in all this for me. How much are the Russians brainwashed, and how much are they just Russian?
Is there a difference?
The cultural values of the U.S. or the West in general versus Russia is very different. It's in Russia, there's this idea of Russian dominance over the Slavic world, right? They see themselves as the protectors, even if they have to come in with guns to protect you.
Yeah,
you know. So, I really don't know, man. Where there's so much fog of war, is any of the stuff we're receiving actually true? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, no, it's very unclear. It's a war.
Yeah.
Do you think that NATO or the U.S. will get involved militarily at some point?
No, well, there's already been NATO losses. That day 1 or 2, there was a Romanian plane that was out, patrolling the border that disappeared. They sent out a helicopter to go find it. That helicopter also disappeared. NATO insists it's a crash. Russia says it might have been Ukrainian AA firing on them. The point is, there's already been 7 NATO deaths in this.
I mean, I could see. I mean, it's entirely logical that it could have been accidental friendly fire from the Ukrainians. I mean, look at the 6 Days War, where the Israelis accidentally sunk a U.S. ship.
Yeah,
it happens.
Oh yeah. Dude, Romania they're still flying MiGs. The model that crashed was built in 1959. What are you doing in NATO if you aren't up to date with this stuff?
You gotta admit that sounds very Romanian.
It does.
I have to imagine if Romania sends tanks, they'll be pulled by donkeys. You know?
It really makes you wonder, what is the purpose of NATO right now?
I feel like NATO's been kind of given a new purpose now because of the Russian invasion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that for like the last 2-3 decades, no one understood what NATO was for anymore because the big boogeyman of Europe was gone, and now the big boogeyman of Europe is back. Okay. Much weaker, than he was before, but clearly still able to function. And still has, 5,000 nuclear warheads?
Oh, yeah.
Which
Putin's been threatening the nuclear stuff since day one. But come on, fight a war like a man. Come on, you went in there, you got your ass handed to you.
Either back out or drop a nuke. Like
honestly, just stop with the nuclear posturing. I mean, no one buys it.
Limited nuclear strikes is part of Russian doctrine. They believe they can do it without the West escalating to total world annihilation.
Yeah.
Which is not part of U.S. doctrine. U.S. doctrine is if they are struck, they will fire everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we've made that very clear to the Russians repeatedly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Crazy to think back in 1945, there was only tactical uses of nuclear weapons.
Yes.
The only method was tactical. And I guess it kind of worked.
I mean, it worked incredibly well.
Yeah. It ended the war.
For the first time, the enemy has used cruel bombs.
Oh, yeah. It kind of, weirdly enough, it reminds me of one of the sieges of Constantinople, where they brought out the Greek fire as a final move against the Ottomans and sent them on their way hastily.
What do you think it would take for NATO or the U.S. or Western powers to get involved in Ukraine?
That's a great question, dude.
I don't think we'll do it. I mean, if we do, it's
at all for anything.
If in what capacity do you mean?
Any, really. I mean, besides sanctioning, like, what do you think there's a point? I guess I already asked this, but if there were to be a point where we intervened on a military front, what would cause that?
Like boots on the ground?
Boots on the ground.
The only way we put boots on the ground is if a NATO member is attacked.
Yeah, if Article 5 gets triggered, and that should do it. On paper, that should do it.
And that would also be the end of the world.
As we know it, yeah.
I mean,
rise of the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. Well, except, I don't know. I feel like I feel like that could have a domino effect between India and Pakistan. So some Southern Hemisphere is not going to be too. I guess that's more the equator, isn't it?
Yeah, South Africa is going to be.
The equator is the start of the Southern Hemisphere, so.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be poisonous gas across the entire planet. It's not like the Southern Hemisphere is going to be doing awesome.
Yeah, dude. Ukraine. Why did it take until 2014 for them to start to arm up? You live right next to Russia. Shouldn't it be mandatory that every single man of age carries or has a weapon with him?
You would think so. Try and do what the Swiss did.
Yeah. You'd think it'd be one of the most militarized places in the world, like North Korea.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense, but it is a liberal democracy. I guess, but Switzerland's a liberal democracy, and every man must serve.
Yeah. Crazy to me, man. Well, okay, so Zelensky is constantly asking for more and more weapons and stuff.
Understandably.
Is he paying for those?
I imagine we're sending them as aid.
That's a lot of money in aid.
I don't want Russia to take over Ukraine. I'm okay with it.
Ukraine is not a U.S. ally.
They're Western aligned.
They're on the border of Russia.
Not by choice.
Yes, Russian. So is Estonia.
Sure, I'm just saying it's not like Canada gets invaded. Is this really a U.S. issue? Is my point. It could quickly become so along the borders of Ukraine.
I can see how currently it is not. It is a U.S. concern, but it is not a U.S. issue. Like, it hasn't raised to the point where, like, the U.S. has some sort of absolute obligation to be involved. But the U.S. should definitely be monitoring it and probably trying to help the Ukrainians.
Yeah. And Russia's claim that NATO is quote unquote expanding. People apply to be in NATO. NATO isn't invading countries and making them become NATO countries. That doesn't really happen.
Also, I don't think Sweden and Finland are looking at Russian neighbor being invaded and going, wow, now I don't want to join NATO.
Yeah, exactly. It's this whole scenario where people don't feel safe because of Russia, so they want to join NATO, which makes Russia feel unsafe and want to invade people so they don't join NATO.
Yeah.
It's just a never-ending spiral. Dude, did you know that, I think it was in it might have been the 40s or 50s, there was a point where Russia wanted to join NATO.
Yeah, it was sort of a political power play, though. I mean,
it was.
Stalin was trying to either point out that either NATO is not to prevent war and is actually an alliance against Russia, or if they had let the Soviet Union in, then NATO would become pointless. He was just trying to make them admit that it's an anti-Russia alliance.
Which is
I mean, it's
incorrect.
No, I mean, that's what it is. You know?
We'll take everyone but Russia. Right. So yeah, dude. I don't know. Now we got like 120,000 U.S. troops on the border. Except we don't have any U.S. troops on the southern border. But we'll do it for Ukraine, a non-NATO member.
I mean, Mexico's not attacking.
The cartel is pretty dangerous, man. They constantly cross over the border. Like Russia's claim that, well, there's Nazis in eastern Ukraine, so we have to invade. We have to demilitarize. The cartel has done a lot of damage and does not mind crossing the border to do that damage against U.S. citizens, and yet we don't invade over that.
Well, but
it's a lot less overt.
Sorry.
It's a lot less overt than what Russia is doing.
Sure, but the cartels are strapped up. I mean, they can rival the Mexican military.
I mean, also, the claim that the Russians are making that they have to demilitarize because of the Nazis on the border, the far-right groups on the border, isn't legitimate. I mean, it's not a legitimate reason to invade.
Not a legitimate reason to invade. It is a bit of a concern. Have you seen the Azov battalion?
Far right. I mean, okay, all the countries across Europe have far right groups.
The more Eastern European you get,
There are a lot of them. I mean, there's a ton of them. They're an extreme minority.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're an extreme minority.
Extreme minority, yeah.
It's not a reason to invade.
No.
I mean, it's like, can I invade Greece because of
the question? The question would be, how often do those Nazi groups in Ukraine interfere with Russian citizens in Russian territory? And since they can, I guess that's where this whole thing comes down to, them considering the Donbass and Luhansk regions to be part of Russia,
that is
therefore
true.
Justifying it. But it doesn't really add up. It doesn't really add up.
Yeah, the cartels are militarized, and I would argue that certain states in Mexico have become narcocracies. But I don't think troops on the border is appropriate.
It's not going to calm things down.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to solve the issue.
Yeah.
So what I find is weird about this whole conflict is that it has united the far right and the far left.
In what way?
Well, they both seem to kind of be trying to justify what Russia is doing. The far left especially, tankies are unapologetically supporting Russia.
Dude, the mental gymnastics right now.
Oh my! And then you got the far right going, well, some of these things that the Russians are saying make sense. It's like, no, they're illegitimate claims. It's like I understand not wanting to get involved, but I'm not going to justify what the Russians are doing.
No. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So I don't want to get involved either because I like being alive.
Yeah, man, I'm not trying to get vaporized like all these Russian troops.
Yeah.
Dude, that seems like 1 out of every 3 deaths for the Russians right now is complete and utter vaporization or just almost unrecoverable. It's insane. The amount of bodies they leave in the field, too.
Yeah.
Talk about a different type of military doctrine.
Yeah.
They just leave them there, man.
No man left behind doctrine over there.
Yeah, and then when the Russians figured out exactly how bad they are at the urban combat stuff, they had to go and bring in reinforcements from Chechnya and Syria, right?
Yeah. You know who I do feel bad for, though, in Russia? Imagine if you were, like, 63 and you had saved up all this money your whole life and you were about to retire and then the ruble drops like 10 times in value.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
like, I imagine as a Russian, you almost come to expect that.
Yeah.
Retiring can be cut at any time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, under the Soviet Union, that would not have happened. That's why so many people want to go back to the Soviet Union. It was stable.
At least it was stable.
Yeah, it sucked, but you knew it was going to suck every day. Yeah. You know, the history of Russia just sucks. It's just not.
Has it ever not sucked?
Yeah, at any point in history has Russia not sucked.
It's always been a very brutal place, man, with threats from foreign outsiders all the time.
Yeah, it has no natural barriers, man.
Yeah, man. Right.
I mean, nothing stops invaders from coming in.
Yeah, once you push past that little mountainous pass region in Ukraine, it's open field.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they have the Himalayas on the southern border, but
the Himalayas,
don't they? No. Or is that's further south? My bad.
Himalayas are between India and China.
Right.
Yeah, they have the
Urals. Yeah. That's what I was thinking of.
And the Caucasus towards the south.
Caucasus. Yeah.
I mean, Asia's pretty much an open expanse, though. You have to go across the Gobi Desert, but the Mongols did it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Granted, the Mongols were pretty good at ignoring natural barriers.
Mobile warfare, dude.
Yeah.
Same way Russia's trying to do it with their the way they have their, like, motorized battalions and whatnot, which is good for maneuver warfare, but you're fighting entrenched positions here. They've had the time and the time and practice to know the area around them really well.
Yeah, and I mean the Russians also, like, they have what's called short legs. I think they have 1.2 engineers for every combat soldier, which for a modern war is not nearly enough. I mean, the technology they use, they need so much support around it to keep it functioning, which is why their logistics is absolute ass.
Yeah, and in terms of rank among the Russian soldiers, there is a massive gap where it's lower, conscripts, and then the high up generals. And that's why I think it's been theorized why we've seen so many generals die in this war, because they have to personally go to the front line to lead shit because the people down there are in total disarray.
Right.
Dude, no GPS in their armored vehicles. No encryption on any of their communications.
None. Wow.
They're fighting a war like it's 1982, dude. It's insane.
That's way before 1982.
It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you mean like no computer encryption. They must be using some sort of like manual analog encryption.
Not so much, it would seem.
Wow.
Very, very few of their like logistical units actually have these keys. So they're just making calls using Ukrainian SIM cards because that's the better connection for them right now.
I mean, I can see how not putting GPS in it makes sense because the U.S. controls GPS. We can just turn it off for them.
Oh, yeah.
We can just be like, no more GPS.
Yeah, but man, you gotta do something. A little thin line with two cans on the end. You gotta do something, dude. It's not working.
Ukrainian soldier comes along, just snips.
That's basically how it's going, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, dude, I think last thing we should talk about the use of banned weapons. I'm seeing cluster bombs left and right, dude. Cluster bomb dispensers after the attacks.
Not banned yet, technically, though.
Really?
Yeah, cluster bombs are still. People keep talking about banning them.
Against which targets?
Wait, no, not cluster bombs. I think are illegal. I'm thinking vacuum bombs. Vacuum bombs are the ones that aren't illegal. Yeah, my bad. Yeah. My bad.
Like those like
there are also
weapons.
There are also reports of chemical warfare over there too.
Confirmed, dude. I've seen the distinct dispersion of white phosphorus when a white phosphorus explosion goes off. And that's one of the crazy claims that a lot of anti-war groups have used over the years. Oh, there's been white phosphorus used in this war and whatnot. What they don't specify is that white phosphorus is used in everything from smoke grenades to all kinds of stuff. What we're really talking about here is the use of white phosphorus as the weapon it was intended for. And that is brutal, dude. Absolutely brutal.
This is a side note. I just want to point out how weird it was the first chemical weapon that we used en masse in a war happened to smell like mustard.
Yeah.
Soldiers came back from World War I traumatized by the smell of mustard.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Dude, that's terrifying.
Take a bite into your Italian sub and have a fucking flashback.
That would be horrifying.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, we've seen that.
they're using vacuum bombs, which are controversial. We still use vacuum bombs, though.
Yeah.
So, but apparently, like, you can be standing a football field away from a vacuum bomb and it'll suck all the air out of your lungs.
Yeah, dude, it's a brutal way to die.
Yeah.
I think the one that we use most in our arsenals is called the daisy cutter, right? That's used for clearing out huge areas of forest so you can land troops there.
Yeah, we also use them to destroy buildings.
Because they certainly can.
Basically, you can put it in the door of a building and it'll collapse the entire building.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a new era of warfare, dude.
Yeah, man. I mean, the javelins have been working phenomenally well against the Russians, dude.
Dude, how has Russia not prepared for top attack weapons?
They did. They put those
the coke cages
on top. But then we put tungsten and depleted uranium in the missiles.
Yeah, then they figured out that the missiles are dual stage, so it doesn't really do anything at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to imagine Russian arms sales are not going to be doing so great in the future.
Also, the AK-12 sucks.
Yeah, man. As far as improvements to the AK goes, AK-12 not one of the best ones of recent make.
Yeah, no, it's not a very good gun. It's not very high tech. It's not I mean, if I was a Russian soldier right now, I'd want an AK-74.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I'd want a 74.
Yeah. Your Cadillac, your classic. Take you where you need to go.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
You seen that there are soldiers out there running around with Mosin Nagants?
Dude, yeah, I've seen all kinds of crazy weapons.
That's a peasant gun from the 1880s.
Yeah, dude. For those rear guard troops in the formerly Russian occupied areas, like the Donbass, that's what they rely on. It's what you have in stock, right?
I mean, we've shot the Nagant. That shit is still accurate. It still works.
It's still a good gun.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a bolt action rifle from the 1880s.
Yeah.
It does not belong in a modern war.
You wouldn't think.
Unless I'm not using a Mosin in a war unless I am very, very far back.
Yeah, dude.
Because up close, there's no point to a Mosin Nagant.
Exactly. And so, folks, that will do it for this episode.
I hope you enjoyed this analysis of the Ukrainian-Russian war from three people who have no idea what they're talking about.
By that, he means 3 West Point grads, 2006.
class of 2020.
That's right.
All right, folks. Have a good one.